What is going on, guys? ESG here, back with a new FPL video. In today's video, I'm going to be going through my Game Week 6 team selection and looking at the transfers that I have made ahead of the deadline. As always, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And with that being said, let's get into it. So to start off with, I wanted to touch on the points that I did get in Game Week 5, as I didn't manage to get a video out with the points that I did get. So all out, I got 60 points for Game Week 5, which wasn't the best, but also wasn't the worst, but it could have gone a lot better. As you can see by my team, I've got a lot of blanks there, which aren't pretty. So starting off with Raya, we got a 4-pointer there due to the save points that he did get. That is Arsenal's hardest fixture out of the way with Man City away, so more than happy to stick with Raya, mainly because the next few fixtures are really nice, which I'm going to touch on when I do get to the team selection, but a 4-pointer from Raya in the hardest game, I'm not going to complain at that. Moving down to the defence, and we got 0 points for Dunk. They conceded 2 goals, and then Dunk got himself booked, so it would have been better to start either Greaves or Konza, and as you can see on the bench, Konza did get a 9-pointer, so I was between starting Dunk or Konza, and I just felt Dunk had the better fixture out of both of them with being at home to Forest, and it just didn't work out. I know that Aston Villa conceded a goal, but Konza got that late winner and got 3 bonus points as well. So or was it 2 or 3 bonus? It might have been 2 bonus points. So Konza would have been the better option, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. I started with Dunk, and it's just the way that it went. Robertson got a clean sheet for me, so I'm more than happy with that. And Trent got a clean sheet and an assist. So two really good returns there from my Liverpool defenders. So that they are Liverpool's best 2 fixtures really out of the way, and they do start to drop off a little bit now. But I am still looking at keeping some Liverpool assets in there because I do feel like this season Liverpool have looked really strong. I know they lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, but that was a little bit of, it was a very poor performance, whereas against Bournemouth they looked really strong, so I'm happy enough to keep some of my Liverpool assets, but maybe not all 3. Moving down to the midfield, 12 points from Salah. I should have captained Haaland yet again. I went with Salah because I thought he had the better fixture. On paper he did, but it just wasn't how it worked out. It was a 3-0 win for Liverpool, but Salah only got an assist, and I say only because Haaland did get that goal in this City game against Arsenal, so it would have been better to captain either Haaland or Rodgers or even Trent. Trent would have been a great captaincy option. But Liverpool did concede early on, and thankfully it was offside, so the clean sheet stayed intact. But if that had been onside, then it would have been looking at a completely different story. So it's all if buts and maybes. I should have captained Haaland or Trent. I didn't. I went with Salah. We move on to the next game week. Eze with another 3-pointer. I think I'm starting to lose my patience with Eze now. That's probably the best 2 fixtures out of the way. They have Everton this week, so I'm probably going to stick with him for one more. But it's not looking great as an Eze owner. He's not getting the returns that people are wanting, so I might have to look elsewhere for a different option. Rodgers with a 10-pointer. I said in my previous video that it was only a matter of time before Rodgers got a return, and in this game he got two assists. Quite late on, but still 2 assists, so really happy with that return. 10-pointer because he got the 3 bonus points in the end. Can't complain at that. Going against Ipswich this game week, I can again see him getting some returns, hopefully. Bowen with the 2-pointer. I really have lost my patience with Bowen at this point. He's just not getting the returns that people would like. They've had some really good fixtures, and he's not getting the returns, and the fixtures just get worse. They've got Brentford this week, but I don't really see them doing much there. They've got Ipswich the week after, which is a decent game, and then after that, the fixtures drop off, so I can't see myself keeping Bowen for much longer, if I'm being completely honest. Moving on to the attack, and there's not really much to talk about. A 1-pointer from João Pedro because he only came on off the bench, and then he got himself injured. 2-pointer from Calvert-Lewin. He played the full 90 minutes, didn't get a return. 9 points from Haaland against Arsenal. So Haaland, again, showing that he is that must-have option up front. But the other attackers not really doing it for me, and I do need to probably look elsewhere for my attack at this point. So that is how the team went in game week 5. It didn't go great with 60 points, but it could have gone a lot worse. So let's now move on to the game week 6 team selection, and we'll start off with the goalkeeper and the defence. So moving on to the team for game week 6 and starting off in net with David Raya. Now, Raya is currently flagged in the game due to a little bit of a muscular injury that he did pick up in that City game. But personally, I see him starting this game at the weekend. I can't see him being out long term, and I think that with them having Leicester at home and then PSG in the Champions League, I can see Raya starting this week just to mainly get some match fitness back from his injury. He missed out midweek in the Carabao Cup, but if people remember last season, he missed out in the cup games as well, and it was Ramsdale that started. So I do honestly think that Raya will be perfectly okay for this game against Leicester, and that's why I'm willing to stick with him in net. If we get any news before the deadline that he's 100% out, then I might have to look at taking a -4 because, as you can see, I have used both of my free transfers. But hopefully we don't get any news on that. I can just stick with the 2 free transfers that I have done, and Raya's good to go for that game. I can see a clean sheet against Leicester, so I really want to keep that double up on of the Arsenal defence, because as you can see, I have brought Gabriel in, which I will get onto in a minute. Moving on to the actual defence, and starting off with Konza. Now, it was between Konza and Dunk for this, and Dunk away to Chelsea versus Konza away to Ipswich. Konza just has the better fixture there. As good as Ipswich have looked at home, I do think that Villa, even if they don't keep a clean sheet, like last week, Konza could get on the score sheet again. So, more than happy to go with Konza in my back line for this week. I think next week he's got a decent game as well, so Konza will be in for the next few weeks, and then I might have to look at making a defensive transfer, but for now, Konza is good enough to go for this week away against Ipswich. Moving on to Gabriel next, who is the transfer in that I have done. As I mentioned, I want to double up on the Arsenal defence with the fixtures that they do have. They have Leicester this week, Southampton the week after, and then Bournemouth. I can see 3 clean sheets there, so really want to double up on that Arsenal defence, and out of Gabriel and Saliba, I was thought Gabriel has a little bit more of an attacking threat to him than Saliba does. So I've brought in Gabriel, and I know it's a little bit before the deadline still, but with Gabriel looking like he's going to get another price rise, I couldn't afford to lose out by 0.2. So I've brought him in at 6.1, and I sold Robertson on 6 million. So I've lost out by 0.1 there, but it's better to lose out on 0.1 than 0.2. So I can see Gabriel getting clean sheets in the next 3, maybe getting on the score sheet as well. So more than happy to go with Gabriel. He's looking like an immense threat from corners. So yeah, more than happy to go with Gabriel as the double up on the defence. And then Trent, I couldn't get rid of my boy Trent. He's been in every draft that I've made. He's been in since the start. Him getting that assist last week just made me want to keep him even more. I was between selling Robertson or Trent, and I was thought Trent has that more of an attacking threat, and I just have to go with him. I can't build a team without him, and I can't justify getting rid of Trent at this minute when he's looking in such good form. So I've stuck with Trent in the team. He's going to be there long term, let's be honest. I've mentioned before, Trent seems to be a set and forget at the minute, and I do stick by that. So more than happy to stick with Trent in there as a Liverpool defender who does get forward and get some attacking returns as well. Looking at the bench, Dunk and Greaves as the 2 defenders, and then Fabianski as the goalkeeper. Fabianski won't play, so I'm not going to touch on him. Dunk away against Chelsea. Chelsea are just looking pretty decent offensively this season at the minute, so I don't really want to justify starting Dunk, especially with the main attacker of João Pedro being out injured and nobody really knows how long he's going to be out for. I can see Chelsea getting goals in this game against Brighton, so I don't want to be starting Dunk. And then Greaves at home to Villa. I can see Villa getting goals, so I'm not going to be touching Greaves for this week. He's not going into my team at all, so Konza is the only option that I could go for. So that is the goalkeeper and the defence. Now let's move on to the midfield, where I have made another transfer. So moving on to the midfield, and I'd probably say 4 of these players I'm happy with starting, and then 1 of them I'm sort of being forced into start because of injuries. So let's start off with Eze, who I am pretty happy with. Away against Everton this week, Everton defensively haven't looked the best, but Palace offensively haven't looked the best either. And with Everton having Jared Branthwaite back now and Mikalenko's back, do I see Everton being a little bit more tight defensively? Yes, I do. So do I see Eze getting an attack and return this game? Maybe not. So starting Eze probably isn't the best, and I would have looked at transferring him out, but I didn't really have anybody that I could bring in for him due to price changes, and it would have to be a -4 to take him out at this point, and I don't really want to be wasting a -4 to take Eze out when there is a little bit of a chance that he does get a return. So for this game week, I'm willing enough to stick with Eze, and then from next game week, maybe look at transferring him out because the fixtures do get a little bit more tricky from next game week for Crystal Palace. Moving on to Rodgers next. 2 returns last game week. I know he's 5 million, so he's not going to be doing that every week. But away against Ipswich, there is that chance that he does get an attack and return again. So again, I'm more than happy to stick with Rodgers this game week, and just on the off chance that he does get an attack and return. So yeah, I'm more than happy to stick with him, and with him being 5 million, it just frees up funds elsewhere in the team for me to bring in other players. So I'm more than happy to stick with him. Looking at Mbeumo, next to is the transfer in that I have done. I've taken Bowen out for Mbeumo. Bowen's just not been doing it for me, whereas Mbeumo has been returning, and the fixtures that he's got coming up are really nice and favourable. So I'm more than happy to have Mbeumo in there, and I do think that this week at home against West Ham, he can get at least one attack and return. And then after that, he's got some pretty decent fixtures as well. So, and Bournemouth's probably going to be in it for the long term now. And I can see him getting quite a few attacking returns. I think last week against Spurs, he got a goal quite early on. Could he do the same this week? 100%. But I do feel like Vissa being out might affect Brentford a little bit. So there is a little bit of a risk going with Mbeumo, mainly because we've not really seen him play too much without Vissa, but I do think that with Mbeumo being on penalties, he's going to be sort of the main attacker now. I'd be stupid to go without him for the fixtures that Brentford have coming up, so I'm more than happy to stick with Mbeumo there now that I've brought him in. Looking at Minte next, this is the one that I've been forced into starting because of João Pedro's injury, so before the deadline, I may end up taking a -4 hit to take Minte or João Pedro out. I'm just not sure who I'd want in. When taking a -4, there's multiple things that you have to take into account. And the main one is, can the player that you're bringing in outscore the player that you're taking out over multiple game weeks? So bringing out Minte for the likes of a Semenyo probably wouldn't be worth it, because as good as the next 2 fixtures are for Semenyo in Southampton and Leicester, after that the fixtures drop off massively. So if he only gets 1 return over the next 2, that's not worth it. Whereas Smith Rowe, for example, he has some really good fixtures long term, but also some tricky ones. So long term, could he outscore Minte 100%? His minutes are increasing, but is that a transfer that I desperately want to make? At this moment in time, I wouldn't say so. The same goes for João Pedro. We don't know how long João Pedro is going to be out for, but there's no real transfers that I want to make. João Pedro to Danny Welbeck, I don't want to be bringing in another Brighton attacker, mainly because I don't know how Brighton are going to play over the next few. The fixtures are starting to drop off now, so I'm looking at steering away from Brighton as it is. João Pedro to a Chris Wood, I don't really think I can afford that transfer, but even if I could, do I see long-term Chris Wood being the best option? I wouldn't say so, no. Gibbs White is out this game week, so that's a little bit of the attacking threat already gone for Nottingham Forest. So could I see them getting goals this game week? Not necessarily, no. So Chris Wood again is one that I'm not really looking at bringing in. I can't afford to bring in Duran from Aston Villa, and even then his minutes aren't guaranteed. Nobody knows when he's going to come on off the bench. There are other players, Evan Nielsen from Bournemouth, but again, Bournemouth fixtures over the next 2 are good, but long term, not so much. So there is a little bit of thinking that I have to do there. Will I be tempted to take a -4? What? I think definitely I will be tempted. It's just, can I bring in the right player for long term to outscore the player that I do end up taking out? So, Minte away against Chelsea, he got benched last week. I can see him getting benched again. There's just so much squad depth in that Brighton team at the minute. So the question is now, will he come on off the bench, and what will he do off the bench? Will he manage to get a goal? And away against Chelsea, I just can't see it. And as I have said, Brighton's fixtures are starting to drop off now, so I might be tempted to take a -4. And if I do take a -4, it will be to bring probably a Smith Rowe. If I'm being completely honest, I do feel like Fulham's fixtures, although people say that Fulham's fixtures are dropping off, there are still some nice fixtures in there, so he's 100% worth a shout. If not this week, then in future weeks, definitely. Then moving on to Mo Salah, who I've got down as my vice captain for this week. Away against Wolves, a lot of people are moving away from Salah and they're bringing in Saka, but this is just my opinion. Like, I do feel like Salah's fixtures are equal to, if not better, than Saka's long term. Salah has Wolves away this week. Saka has Leicester at home. Wolves are bottom of the league with one of the worst defences. Leicester are near the bottom with as bad of a defence. So I would personally say either or this game week of Saka or Salah is great to go for. Next game week, again, Saka's at home to Southampton. Salah is away to Crystal Palace. Again, two defences that are struggling this season, so Salah is still worth going for that game week as well. Game week 8, Saka has Bournemouth away. Salah has Chelsea at home. Little bit more tricky for Salah, but still a decent enough fixture. And then from game week 9 onwards, Liverpool and Arsenal play each other in game week 9, and then they both have evenly tricky fixtures. So for me personally, Salah is still that go-to player for this season, and I do think that over the next few, he can 100% outscore Saka, if not match him. So I'm not willing to take a -4, or I'm not willing to look at transferring Salah out with the fixtures that Liverpool do have coming up. So that is the midfield that I am going with for this game week. The only change will be Minte out for another cheap option in midfield. I'm just not sure who for just yet, and whether or not I am willing to take a -4 or not. So, as I said, that's the midfield. Let's move on to the attack, where there's not really any changes that have been made. So finally moving on to the attack, and I think out of the players that I do have, the attack picks itself. João Pedro's injured anyway, so I can't start him. So I'm only left with Calvert-Lewin and Haaland, and I do feel like both of these players can get returns this game week. Starting off with Calvert-Lewin at home to Crystal Palace. Palace defensively haven't looked the best this season, let's be honest. They managed to keep a clean sheet against Man United, yeah, but vulnerabilities were there, and I can see other teams capitalising on that. And with Everton being at home, I do think that at home they are a better team than away. So I can see Calvert-Lewin getting on the score sheet this game week against Palace, and honestly, I hope that he does. I think he's been in quite good form this season, so he can get goals, and he does deserve some more goals. The last few seasons he's struggled with injury, and if he can stay fit for Everton, I think that could be the difference maker of them staying up or going down. So for now, with Calvert-Lewin being fit, I can see him getting returns, so I'm more than happy to go with him in my starting 11 for this game week. And then Haaland away to Newcastle. Newcastle defensively have been woeful this season, let's be honest. They conceded 3 to Fulham. They've conceded quite a few in other games as well. And in the game against Spurs comes to mind the most. I know that they won that 2-1, but the chances that Spurs had, Newcastle could have lost 3-4 or even 5-2. So I can't see Man City missing those chances that Spurs got. So that's why I'm captaining Haaland this game week. It's the first game week that I am captaining Haaland. Away against Newcastle, maybe not the best week on paper, but let's be honest, City are a team to be reckoned with this season, and Newcastle's defence hasn't been great, so I think I would be stupid to go against Haaland this week, because could I see another hat-trick on the cards? Maybe, with how bad Newcastle's defence has been. So that is the team overall. Let me know what you think in the comments. And let me know whether you think that I should take a -4 to bring in either an 8th attacker or a different midfielder instead of Minte. So there we have it, guys. That is the Game Week 16 that I am going with for this week. So I want your thoughts in the comments, as always. First of all, what's your team looking like for this week, and have you activated your wildcard like a lot of other managers have? And secondly, with regards to my team, what changes do you think I need to make, and do you think that I really need to take a -4 to bring in another player instead of Minte or João Pedro? As always, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And until next time, thank you for watching.